You are experiencing the small hours.
Hello, welcome to the Small Hours. My name's Matt Warren. Hope you're all doing well. Today's video is going to be about one of my favourite films of all time. It's a film called Possession, and it was directed by Andrzej Zulawski in 1981. It stars Isabella Gianni and Sam Neill, both giving tremendous performances. It's quite an intense film. It's pretty much, a fever pitch, hysterical kind of performance and basic plot, which retains for the whole 2 hours running time, especially if you're looking at the director's cut, which most of you who find this film will see nowadays. It was made in, like I said, in 1981. Without giving too much away in terms of, plot spoilers or anything like that, it's essentially the breaking down of a relationship, of a marriage, and the person who comes between the two, the couple played by Isabella Gianni and Sam Neill. It's an interesting film in so much as that it was. It sort of crosses over boundaries, or crosses boundaries in terms of the style, I guess, if you like, or the genre. We, ostensibly we have a what you would say, I guess, European art house approach to sort of like a drama. There's a lot of handheld camera footage, so it's quite frenetic. It has quite a bit of energy. There's a lot of natural looking light. It's quite cold looking, even though I believe it was shot in summer. It was shot in Berlin in 1981, right next to the wall, which actually feeds in a little bit to the plot as well, in so much as it talks about this idea of divided or fractured families, relations, which is very much a reality for some people in Berlin at that time, because you had people living on the east side of the wall and people living on the west side of the wall. And they were perhaps they were families, relations of some kind, and they weren't able to actually see each other because of the divide between the country and the city. And so there was that element as well. There was also another element which was quite interesting to this film, in so much as that it sort of incorporated kind of almost like a horror monster movie kind of element to it as well, although not as overt as a traditional horror film. The person that comes between, or the being that comes between the couple that someone is having an affair with, is kind of monstrous. And as the film evolves, as the film carries on, this creature, monster, kind of evolves and becomes more sort of human, if you like. And so there is this kind of sense of this monster that's actually growing and being built over this period of time. And that gives it a kind of, a monster movie, almost Frankenstein kind of feel to it, although it's, it's not your traditional horror film in that sense. The filmmaker, Andrzej Zulawski, is Polish, or was Polish, I should say. But this film was made or written while he was living in Paris. I think he was actually not hounded out, but certainly he had to leave Poland at some point to further his career, because he was just being, sidelined, if you like, by the communist rule at the time, and his films were considered a little bit too radical for that kind of rule. The film itself is, the director's cut was about, like I said, about 2 hours long. My first experience of seeing this film was a 1982-83 VHS copy that I saw, which was the US cut, which was about 80 minutes long. So there's about 40 minutes of it cut out. And that's quite a bit. And, you know, in a normal film, that would be over half the film. And, you know, you have a slightly different, obviously it's much more condensed. You have a few slightly different elements, such as the score is a little bit different. And there's some interesting video effects that have been overlaid over some scenes that give it a more surrealistic, almost psychedelic kind of feel to it. It's not without its charm, that version of it, and it's the one that, like I said, it's the first one I saw. But the version you really should see is the uncut, uncensored version, director's cut. And like I say, I think if you are able to track this film down now, it's kind of the only version you'll really find. However, I'll get back to that a bit later on. I got to see the uncut version here with this version of the DVD that I bought back in, I think, 1999 or 2000 when I was living in Canada. I got this via Amazon, I think, but it was was released by Anchor Bay. It's a pretty stripped down DVD. There's not a whole lot on it other than the movie and a couple of trailers. I think there's commentary as well by the director. And it looks great. It's a really, really good version of it. And the reason I've held on to it is because I was a little disappointed by this, which is the Umbrella Entertainment edition released in Australia here on Blu-ray. This was announced early in 2021 or maybe mid-2021. And I was really keen to get a Blu-ray, a nice, you know, transfer of it on Blu-ray. And so when this was released or announced, I, you know, did a pre-order and so on. There was a bit of a delay due to COVID stuff, but it did eventually get here. It's got fantastic packaging. It's got some really, really good extras on it as well. So, you know, making of stuff, some further commentary from the director, some really interesting featurettes on, you know, where it was shot and some of the different cuts of it. One of the other great little extras on it is the US cut of Possession. So it's actually got the 80-minute version of it that I spoke of before. So it's great to be able to have both of those versions of it, even though the full director's cut is, you know, the ultimate version. But I've got to say I was a little disappointed with the transfer to Blu-ray of this film. It's just a little bit noisy. It's got this weird digital flickering that happens in some of the darker moments in the film. There's quite a bit of dark stuff in there. And so it's a little irritating. So I'm going to try and track down another version of it at some point. But this isn't really a review of Umbrella Entertainment's edition. It's basically a discussion of this film. Highly recommend this film if you can get a good copy of it. It's like I said, it's very hysterical. It's quite exhausting, especially if you do watch the 2-hour version, because, like I say, the energy is fever pitch throughout. It's quite hysterical, but it's got a really, really strong, almost apocalyptic kind of feel about it, and it feels kind of quite apt where we are in 2021, post-COVID. But it's also just a really interesting kind of exploration of the human condition, and particularly with a couple that's splitting up. You know, neither character are particularly appealing, but you do feel some kind of empathy towards them because they're just going through some really difficult stuff. And, you know, for that reason alone, it's well worth having a look at. So that's Possession by Andrzej Zulawski from 1981, starring Isabelle Adjani and Sam Neill. Well worth a look. Thanks for watching.